All right, let's get into it. Have you ever stood in your kitchen and just wondered, what is the actual secret to a perfect loaf of bread? Or a flaky pie crust that just shatters? Or a cake that practically melts in your mouth? Well, today we are pulling back the curtain on the science of baking, and we're going to uncover the magic that's happening every single time you mix flour and water. Okay, so let's dive right in. It all starts with what seems like the most basic ingredient in your pantry, flour. It looks simple, right? But it actually holds the key to pretty much every texture you can ever want in baking. And this is the big question, isn't it? It's the puzzle every baker faces. How on earth do two simple ingredients give you things that are so wildly different? Well, the answer is all about building, or sometimes choosing not to build, a kind of hidden scaffolding inside your dough. And here it is. This is our star of the show, gluten. Now, gluten isn't something you just add from a container. It's something you actually create the moment you add water to flour. Two proteins that have just been hanging out, gliadin and glutenin, they wake up and they start linking arms, forming this incredible elastic web. That network is the whole secret. So let's talk about how this one single concept is the key that unlocks almost all of baking. You see, thinking about gluten isn't a simple yes or no thing. It's really a whole spectrum of possibilities. And the best part is that you, the baker, are the one in complete control. The whole process really happens in three stages. First, you add the water, and that wakes up the proteins. Second, they immediately start to find each other and link up, forming these long, tangled chains. But that third step, the mixing or kneading, that's where you come in. That's where you take all those messy chains and organize them into a strong, stretchy, powerful web. There's a really great way to picture this. Think of that gluten network as millions and millions of tiny, microscopic balloons. As the yeast in your dough creates gas, those little gluten balloons trap that gas and inflate. And that is what lets your dough rise so high and light without just popping and collapsing. So when you get right down to it, every single baking recipe falls somewhere on this spectrum. The question you always have to ask yourself is, am I trying to develop the gluten or am I trying to limit it? For a fantastic chewy bread, you're going to need to build a really powerful elastic network. But for a super delicate, tender cake, you do the exact opposite. You mix as little as humanly possible to keep that network weak and fragile. But here's the thing, gluten doesn't work in a vacuum. All the other ingredients in your recipe, they're like the supporting cast. And a lot of the time, their main job is to either help gluten along, or more often, to get in its way, which, believe it or not, is often exactly what we want. So how do these ingredients, these tenderizers, actually pull this off? Well, it's pretty clever. Fats, like butter or oil, they literally coat the particles of flour, making them waterproof and physically stopping those protein strands from ever meeting up. Sugar's got a different strategy. It's a competitor. It loves water, so it basically just steals the moisture that the gluten proteins need to form their network. So you see, these aren't just for flavor. They are your secret weapons for controlling texture. Okay, so let's bring this out of the lab and into the kitchen. Let's see how all this theory plays out in three classic bakes that I'm sure you know and love. And when you lay it all out like this, it just clicks, right? For bread, your goal is maximum gluten, so of course your technique is a ton of kneading. For a flaky pie crust, you want weak gluten, so what do? You cut in cold fat to block gluten, and you use as little water and handling as possible. And for that perfect tender cake, the goal is minimal gluten, which is why we mix so gently and only until that flour just disappears. See, every technique serves the goal. So what does this all mean? What's the big takeaway here? Well, honestly, it changes everything about how you look at a recipe. And this right here is the key. You're no longer just blindly following a set of instructions. Now you understand the why. You know why you cream butter and sugar for a cake, why a bread recipe tells you to knead for 10 full minutes, and why you have to be so careful with pie dough. You are now in total control of the final texture. Seriously, this knowledge is like a superpower in the kitchen. It gives you the power to troubleshoot recipes, to adapt them, and to create things with real intention. So the only question left is, now that you have this secret weapon, what are you going to create?